Hey. Welcome, 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 family. This is your host, Dr. Andre Martin with Soul Therapy Live. I'm so excited to be with you all in the house on today. We're always looking to make improvements among um, people and affect their lives in various positive ways. And so, hopefully, as you tune into this broadcast, make sure that you share with someone, subscribe online in the sea of podcasts and all different types of opinions. Always know that I have your best interest in heart, and hopefully you'll learn something as we dive into the topic for today. But before I get started, you know I am a great big collector, so I have this, or I learned about this term called a haul. And a haul is when you go, because one of my favorite hobbies that I'm like really into right now is collecting comic books as well as other, collectible toys. And I am so geeked out because I am looking forward to a couple of movies that's coming out. So one of them is The Mandalorian. So hopefully I'll see that next week. And then after that is going to be the Masters of the Universe. I'm a big Masters of the Universe fan, have been so for many, many years. I okay, so I'm going to show you guys something really, really briefly. Okay, so I'm just going to rotate this around. I know it is absolutely shameful. Isn't that something? Oh my goodness. So that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is just a small piece of some of my toys and a lot of other things that I have that are including the Attorney Apprentice set and as well as a couple of other things that are inside of my room and also a Pooh Bear toy. So there's a secret behind that, but I'll keep that one a secret, right? So that's just the midst of some of the things that I have that are inside of my office, and it brings me happiness and peace in here, as well as a bunch of other things in here from fraternity I'm part of, and also a lot of stuff from Marvel and artwork, African art, and a whole bunch of stuff. So I like to show my little haul of things that I have. How are you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. So this is my very first thing right here, right? So this is Triclops. So this is one of the actors and one of the figures that I wanted to get because I love collecting different types of superheroes, people of color, people of every color, right? But this was really unique to me, and so he is going to be inside of the movie. And then I found out Moss Man, who actually is another African American actor. I just found that out today, and he's actually going to be inside of the movie. And then, of course, this one. So for all my ladies that's out there, you already know who this one is, right? This is Idris Elba. Idris Elba. And Idris Elba is going to be a part of the actual movie as well. And he's playing the character Man at Arms. So I got both of these on just a couple of days ago. So I am so happy about that. And I have these hung up inside of my room. And then, of course, finally, and I thought this was really good too. Da 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 da. Isn't this nice? So this is actually a piece of artwork. It's actually a skateboard, but these are all of the villains that are actually a part of Masters of the Universe. And so since most of you may not know about this, especially if you're from like one of the earlier generations, my son is trying to get into it a little bit. And also shout out to Diego, one of his friends that's also interested in Masters of the Universe. So this is Beastman. Of course, everybody knows this one. This is Skeletor. Y'all probably see them on memes on Facebook and social media all the time along with Prince Adam, whatever it is, right? So he's always in there making all of these, funny different types of remarks. This one is Trap Jaw, and of course, this one is Merman. I don't really have too many villains. I have primarily heroes, but I thought it was just a really, really nice piece of artwork. And then, of course, I'll show you some of the other stuff a little bit later on as well. So, my son Jaden is home for the summer, and so I'm going to get my nerd on and my collections on. So there's going to be various stops that we're going to be going around to for the actual week and over the summer. So it's going to be a great, great time. And of course, to my son Andre. Thank you for so much. Hopefully that you're tuning in as well. He'll be a senior this upcoming year. Jaden actually be a junior. I mean a sophomore this upcoming year at FAU. and Andre is going to be a senior this year at Stetson. I know he is really ready to get from out of school. Hold on. Help is on the way. You're almost done. Keep on going to the glory of God. I'm definitely very proud of the of both of them. So for tonight's topic, leaving a godly legacy, faith, family, and future generations. So this particular topic is really, how should I say, very, very near and dear to my heart amongst a lot of other topics, right? Because I believe that legacy is not what you leave behind for people. It's what you build into people through how you live, how you interact with one another in regards to your work and your career, and also how you love others or love other people. And so when we think about living a legacy and what does that look like? Now, earlier on, and I have this nice little chart, and I have to find it, and I'll probably post it in the Soul Therapy Live Facebook page at another date. But I have this chart that shows you different stages of development. Now, it's just a guide, but it kind of tells you, like, infancy, you're just coming into the world, being apprentice, your high school years and the like, going into your early 20s. That's you're a student, then you become an apprentice, and then after that you start getting into building, becoming a builder, then you become a mentor, then you start looking at becoming a person that's um, you know building a legacy, a statesman, and then become a sage when, of course, in your latter years. And so my wife and I, and so one of the ranges that I remember in that particular chart, which I think was 35 to 45, is your builder phase. This is almost like your years, your silent years when you're just working on your career, working on your degrees. And these are just a guide, right? So don't feel some kind of way if you're outside of that range, because sometimes certain things start really getting going a little bit later on in life once that particular season or that particular phase in your life, maybe that time is right? Sometimes trees don't bloom until many years later. But this range, which goes from 35 to 55, when I first saw this particular chart, it really stood out to me. The apprentice years are like, you know, uh, basically 18 to 34. So you're learning from others. You can't really quite get the management position because everybody looks at you and you still like you have the baby face, right? I even remember when I was 25 years old and I was, in my eyes, the hottest person on the planet as far as like teaching and instruction and being gifted at teaching. I remember my manager, Bill Atkinson, at that time, he said to me, he said, Andre, I know that you're really talented and the students really love you, but you're just not there yet. You're not there yet. And I was like, well, I passed all the tests. I got all my I's dotted. I got a master's degree, all this other type of stuff. What is the problem? What is the problem? But he said I was not there yet. And not until 12 years later, being seasoned in teaching and learning technology, I had to learn that there's a difference between having knowledge and then having knowledge and experience. Some people have either or. Sometimes you have experience, but then you may not have the knowledge. Sometimes you have the knowledge and then you don't necessarily have the experience. I have the book knowledge, I got good grades, but then you actually have to do it. So once I bridge those two things together, which takes time and learning, that now I got it. And then when I turned 35, that's when things begin to change, not only in that particular arena, which was in teaching, but also in information technology and even in ministry. I started in ministry when I was 35 years old. I did not start a church when I was called into the ministry at 25. It took me 10 years of learning, listening, understanding things that were appropriate as far as being a pastor, and things that were not necessarily appropriate at all. Raising a family, I had to gain my footing, figure out what my career was going to be during those years. And then also becoming a man and understanding what manhood really was. And I really wasn't comfortable in my skin until I was 35 years old. So that 35 to 45 is your builder phase. And then of course your once you turn 46 all the way up to 55, then that's when you go from building to now you are sharing and you're mentoring others and you are pouring into others. And lo and behold, that's the phase that I'm in right now, sharing and pouring into others. It's so funny because I remember Bishop McLaughlin's telling me many, many years ago, and he was 52 at the time, and I was 34 at the time when I first met him, right before we started our ministry. And he said, "Son, you got time. There's time left. Just pace yourself." And in so many words, he was saying that nobody didn't listen to me until I started losing my hair and I started getting gray. And that was not until I was 50. And I was like, what's so important about 50 years old? And so now, fast forward 16 years later, here I am. I got more gray in my beard, and it seems like people listening. And I think that it's because years experience and then also being successful and all that stuff, those things are not really realized until you get older. You're not just saying what you know, you've lived it and you have experiences that you could speak to for a variety of different age ranges that people are actually experiencing even right now. And even as I get older, people start dealing with different things as far as their life and passing away, health issues. All of those things really matter even more to me now than it did from before. And so I have a question that I want to ask you. If your life ended today, what would still be speaking tomorrow? What would be the echo chamber? You know how like somebody says you hear your voice, hello, hello, hello. If you were to pass away today, what would be the echo chamber of your life? Or if somebody were to give you um, a eulogy, what would be said about you? Right? And the reason why I'm pivoting to this is not because I have some type of a omen or anything like that. No, if God wants me to leave and I go to heaven with Him tonight, then that's exactly what my appointment will be, and there's nothing stopping that. He's still a good God regardless. But let's just say, for example, with long life, God wants me to satisfy Him, to continue to preach the gospel, to continue to help people in their careers, to grow as men and even as women, and to impact their lives for quite some time. So let's just say it's the latter, right? If it's the latter, the way that I think about this, I think about legacy and what you want to leave behind. I posed a question to some of the young men to this past Sunday, and even some of our clergy team and some of the older gentlemen this Sunday. And I said, if you were to die or pass away, what would you? How do you believe that your family would be taken care of? And it was kind of jarring, right? Because it was like, okay, well, we're thinking about this and we're talking about this, right? But we know that mothers leave a legacy. And then, of course, the fathers, the men, the sons can also be a part of that legacy as well, right? So I asked the men, I was like, if you were to pass away, would your family be taken care of? Now, I understand if you're building and I understand if you're starting out, but these are things that you have to have in your mind. We could talk about wills and trust or estate planning. I like the trust. That's kind of like the phase that I'm looking at for the future. But aside from that, do you have insurances in place? Will bills be paid off? Or will you bring a bill after? It's almost like this. Do you have enough money to take care of your funeral expenses, pay off a lot of bills for your household, or maybe even a house, put your kids through college if you were to pass away? Do you have that being set aside right now? Or will it actually cost your family money once you pass away? And do they have to do a GoFundMe or all of these other different types of things to take care of you? Right. And I'm talking about those of us that are of age in, your late 30s, your 40s, beyond. Are your people going to be taken care of after you left over? Now that's from the financial side, right? Those are things that you need to think about. Your 401k, your life insurance, et cetera, et cetera. Even the jobs that we have. If you don't have those things in place, then it's going to put your family in a strain a little bit later on. We can't just think about the here and now because we assume that because a person is young and they're healthy, that nothing can happen. Things can happen. So that's on the financial side, right? But more importantly than that, even if you do have those things in place, here's some realities. Bank accounts can fade, titles can also expire, right? But the impact that you have in people will live on. So I think of it like this. I could be a great provider. I can have enough money coming out of my pockets to deal with all of the monetary things that's necessary, trips going over places, so on and so forth. But one of my favorite legacies is what I leave with my sons as they are becoming adults and becoming men. That's like one of my favorite things, not only with my sons biologically, but also my sons spiritually. So I give you one particular example. So there was a young man that I mentored when he was just leaving from out of college, right? Shout out to Malik, right? 730 Entertainment, great man, great young man in his career. And back then he was like 19, 20. Now he's 35. I was like, oh my gosh, the time has just gone by. And so he's been all over the place, all over the country and around the world doing film work and the whole nine yards, living life, has children, family, et cetera, right? And he popped up in church on this past Sunday. And it was just such a blessing to me to see that although we have not been around each other face to face for like 16, 15, 16 years, I felt like he never left. And I was like, of all people he could have visited, he visited Lady Martin and I. That is what I see as a legacy because he remembered how I poured into him, into his life, gave him advice. Some things he listened to, some things he did not listen to, but loved him all throughout all of these phases. Every now and then I would hit him up with a text, encouraging word, a scripture, and then life be life, and right. So just for him to pop up, that just lets me know, and also lets those of us that were around at that time know that we should keep on doing what we're doing. That having an impact on someone else's life truly matters a whole lot. So the question is, what kind of impact will you leave, right? From a biblical standpoint, the scripture says a good man leaves an inheritance not only for his children, but his children's children. In other words, my grandkids. I'm already thinking of that even right now. And I'm not talking about wasteful things, even though I am going to waste things. So, my sons, if you ever see this in the future, I just want to let you know that I'm going to spoil my grandkids. If you have them in about 5 to 7 years, if earlier, that's fine. I'm going to spoil them rotten, and then I'm going to send them back with you at your house. Okay. Sometimes I'm going to keep it with me. Right. But that is what I'm thinking about for the future. I'm thinking about, okay, well, if I leave them something, whatever it may be, then there has to be certain criteria. Maybe I say, okay, well, if you don't go to college, you need to have a business that's been solvent for 3 years, and then you get X, Y, and Z. Or maybe you can have this particular stipend as a down payment in your house after you've gotten your degree or whatever it may be. I could put whatever I want, right? If they want to partake of grandpapa's blessing and inheritance, there's certain things or certain characteristics, certain character um or virtues that need to be in place before you have a benefit from it. Because just as you experience that from a generational wealth standpoint, I also want you to remember those experiences as you begin to carry your legacy forward or the Martin family name. And that's how I think about things moving forward. That's whether it's your children, the spouse that you choose, whatever it may be, you're thinking about the future and not just about the now immediately. And not everybody sees that as like a sexy or somewhat of an engaging type of topic. We just want to think about just a now. I'm going through right now, but what about tomorrow? These are the rare conversations, right? That's so important. We talk about even this when it comes to our politics. People talk about Project 2025, people talk about Obamacare. Sometimes politicians fight very hard to put certain legislature in place because that's what they want their legacy to actually be. When you think of this particular person, right, wrong, or indifferent, this is what they will be remembered by. Yes, we understand that there's behavior, right, wrong, or indifferent, but what is going to be left behind now that I've left office, now that I've gone on and I've termed out from the spiritual world, retiring as a pastor, retiring as a leader, retiring from the workplace? What do you want to leave behind? Not just tangible things, but more so intangible. And so here's the key thought here. A lot of times when we think about legacy, legacy is not only monetary, but it's spiritual, relational, and practical. It includes your faith, your family, your work and influence. Even if you don't have a lot of money, a legacy can be he was a good father and he worked really, really hard. He took the initiative to not just focus on what he does not have, but what he does have without asking, right? Without asking. And then being in an environment where that person can lead and not be questioned every single step of the way, because that also can, kind of, how should I say, damper progress or um, damper, if you will, a mindset of a particular individual that's really trying to take initiative in specific spaces, right? It could be very discouraging. But nevertheless, those are three key areas: your faith, your family, and of course, your work and also your influence. And so the foundation legacy, I believe, begins with God. And your relationship with God is actually the root. So I'll give you another story. So as my son and I, while he's home right now, so we've spent some quality time with each other. One of the things that I've been doing, during my lunch break, if I'm working from home, if you will, is that I like to go for a walk. And so as I was getting ready to go outside, I took notice of I have two hibiscus plants. So one of them is on each side of our house. And as you all know, if you like to be in the garden, we had a very cold winter this time for Florida standards, right? And it basically wiped out both of my hibiscus. All of the leaves were bad. I had to shake the tree to get rid of all of the dead leaves and whatnot. And I was hoping that the hibiscus tree was going to bloom very, very fast and very rapidly, like right after that, right? I thought that I thought that it was going to grow. I thought it was going to be able to move forward, no problem. But what ended up happening was is that it did not grow. And so I was kind of discouraged because I consider myself a green thumb. And later on, I'm gonna wash my hands. Don't worry, I'm gonna wash my hands. So I consider myself as a green thumb, right? And but nothing was growing. I saw like a little green shoot here, so I knew it was still alive. And then the other tree, it wasn't showing anything. So I was like, okay, well, what do we need to do? I took some pictures, sent it to some of my neighbors, and they said, you know what, you're just gonna have to cut it. And I was like, cut it? What do you mean cut it? And it was like, it needs to be cut. And I was like, okay, so what's the reason for that? And he said that the roots were not impacted by the environment. The branches were, the leaves were, the flowers were, but the roots were not impacted by the environment because of how deep they were. They still have nourishment. They still, even though they're in the darkness, it's the anchor of the entire tree. And so our had somebody to cut the bush, and one of them was cut, and one of them was not cut. One of them was like halfway cut. So I was like, okay, maybe the man ran out of plastic bags, whatever it may be. But one of the actual branches was cut all the way, and it looks terrible. It looked absolutely. I was like, oh my goodness. I have pictures of it looking nice and lush and rounded, right, with all the flowers in it. And then now it looks terrible. But I noticed that after about a week with some rain, a bunch of green sprouts started to sprouting all over the branches, even though it's only like 6 or 12 inches from the actual ground. And I was like, look at all of this new growth. And then I looked at the other tree that was only cut partially, and it's still bare, no shoots, no growth or nothing like that. And so I was talking to my son. I was like, this is like the tangible part, right? The intangible. So I said, this is almost like a parable that Jesus was talking about, right? So you see this one particular tree, even though it's been cut off, it's growing rapidly. So think about this when it comes to your friends or the people that you hang around or your associates. Sometimes if you um, don't prune or you don't cut certain dead elements from out of your circle, whether they're friends or associates, certain coworkers, whatever it may be, they may have a lot of influence, but there's still not any growth. And not until you cut them off will things grow rapidly. It was just like marvelous to even see this. and it's blooming like rapidly. I was like, my goodness. So it has the proper root system. Certain things had to be cut off in order for it to grow, and now it's growing rapidly. But that other one, only a couple of branches were cut, but the rest of them still has dead growth. And I was like, I used to think that the new growth, because it has healthy roots, will be able to push the dead away. It eventually will, but it takes a lot longer. Meaning that even if you have certain people that are around you, if they're not legacy minded, if they're still just thinking in the now, or they're just in survival mode, or they're just working like a robot and they're not considering other dynamics in their life, then there's growth that could take place, but it's going to take an extremely long amount of time because whatever is new, it has to push out the old. And to be quite honest, it's stunting the growth. So if you don't have people that are pushing you and you're not thinking about pulling those that are behind you, then maybe perhaps your growth is stunted. Maybe there's certain things in your life that you need to cut off and you need to prune so that things will grow and it will take place. I've experienced this in life. I experienced this in ministry. I've experienced this in my own personal life. Very important. So you have to get rid of, that's right, you have to get rid of the dead growth. It's almost like from scripture, it talks about trying to put new wine into old wine skins. You can't put, or it will burst. It's like taking a new mindset and then trying to put it into old ways because people don't really like to change, right? So if I'm thinking about a legacy and I'm thinking about what I want to leave behind, it's going to require change. If you want something to change, then you have to do something differently. And this is for all of my folk that are set in their ways, right? Even if you're 40, 45, 50 or beyond, you could still make changes, but it's going to be scary. You're not going to have every single guarantee put in place. Because here's one thing I could tell you. If you never try, you will never fail. If you don't take the risk, then you'll stay right where you are. And then life and circumstances, or that prayer that you pray to God and you say, God, I'm praying for these circumstances to change. God has no problem laying you off so that you will have to change and you will have to move forward. You can't be a person who has a legacy or has is legacy minded can't just think about themselves. They have to think about what they're going to leave behind or what kind of impact they're going to make in other people's lives later on. We don't have thousands of people inside of our church. We don't have millions of dollars. But what I have an abundance of is love, and I like to talk a lot, or love and wisdom, and I can share that liberally. But even there, I have to be careful to not cast pearls among swine-minded people. And this is what makes people mad because not everybody's ready to receive. Same way with it comes to the trees that were outside. It was raining, it gets all the sunlight, same soil, same nutrients. But if it has a dead mindset and it's not willing to cut things off, then all that pouring into is going to fall on what? Deaf ears. It's casting pearls before swine-minded people or people who are set in their ways and don't want to change. But then they're looking for change and not doing anything differently. It's kind of like being that wilderness mindset. You're going to continue to circle into the wilderness until certain things have to die off. And just because it's 2026, those timeless principles still have not changed. They're still relevant even on today. God also thinks generationally. This is not only when it comes to blessings, but also when it comes to consequences as well, sometimes even to the third and fourth generation. So even if you grew up in not the most wealthy of situations or circumstances, it's the same thing that I grew up in. But that does not mean that the next generation has to go through that same type of situation. And even if you or you have your children grow up in a better situation, you have to, and this is even more important for those of us that have the degrees, have the jobs, have the cars, all of that. It's even more important, even if you auntie, even if you are a godmom, it's even more important for those that have, because you have to teach them how not to allow for the money that they do have go to their head. And you can't give them everything, even though they have access to a lot more than you did. Because if you spoil them, then you're going to make them weak. If you give them everything, then they're not going to be able to do everything. If you think for them every single step of the way, then they're not going to think for themselves. And then you're going to have a problem on your hands. Or your daughter in law, if you have a son, is going to come to you because the son doesn't want to move any further because mom did everything for them. Or the girl is going to always show up at daddy's house because daddy did everything. And now the man is kind of like, well, what is going on here? And she can't be independent. She can't do certain things on her own in a healthy type of manner. So it's very important for you to think about the future beyond yourself because here's a newsflash: you're going to die one day. There will be slow singing and flower bringing. I want to have a celebration, whatever it may be. No one will leave this planet alive. What happens if Jesus comes back soon? People need to understand that if Jesus comes back, you don't want to be around when that second time comes around. That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother thing. But barring that and putting that aside, every single one of us is has an expiration date where God will call us home. The Bible says the point of the man wants to die and then the judgment. So what you do between now and that particular appointment is of the utmost importance. I understand that Clay and Megan the Stallion, and you looking at the Spurs, what's Wimby doing, the situation between Trump and Iran, and you looking at these gas prices, all of those things are for the now. But that is not forever. What about what you have for the future? What kind of mindset? Do you want to continue a legacy or and that's good. That's when good habits go forward. But maybe God even called you to break a cycle. You may not have, again, millions of dollars, come from the best of household. Maybe you're not a career person. Maybe you're somebody that works with your hands. You can still break the cycle of, well, now that I'm here, I'm just stuck and I can't go any further. I don't want to learn anything else. I just wanted to stay in the same mode over and over again. And now I have an environment where people are encouraging me to only move when everything is a guarantee. Then there won't be any movement, right? Change is scary. Building a legacy sometimes can be intimidated, but if you look at your family dynamic right now, your biggest teachers were mama and daddy, whether they're present or absent, whether they're alive or not. Your brothers and sisters, that prior generation, look at the landscape and you see what your family dynamic is. Are you emulating the best of that legacy or the worst? Are you going to continue the legacy of toxicity and dysfunctionalism, or are you going to break the cycle and then start something new so that as your nieces and nephews or children, or even those that you are mentoring that are not related to you, when they see you, they see something that they can look up to? Does anybody look up to you? Does anybody admire you? And the people don't have to admire you just because of how much money you have in your pocket. So this is not a financial thing. There has to be something in your life that has to be a testament of your greatness, whatever that your greatness, whatever level that may be. So there's a couple of pillars of a godly legacy as I kind of close out here. Your faith, how you walk it out. People don't always care about what you say, they care about what you do. So if you are in or consider yourself as a believer of Jesus Christ, then hypocrisy can hurt that legacy because you're saying one thing on one end, but then you're not doing it on the other end. And then believing in the Lord Jesus Christ also means that I am not going to always get my way. And there's certain elements where I have to die to myself and I have to sacrifice and I have to allow for God to pull things out that don't need to be there. And sometimes I have to walk that journey out in front of others through that dark valley time period. Am I going to curse God and die? Or am I going to stand flat footed and endure whatever season that I'm particularly in at that moment in time and still praise God through that situation? That is a legacy in and of itself, right? We talk about praying grandma. Okay, well, grandma may not have had much, or grandpa may not have had much, but they had a spiritual life. You saw that. And if you're saved, emulate that. Have a prayer life. That's a spiritual legacy that can have far-reaching implications far beyond just having money or monetary things. So that's your spiritual legacy. Praying. I pray for my wife. I pray for my children on a regular basis. And that's not just because I'm a pastor or a leader. I truly do those things and have been doing those things for decades now. And I see the fruit of that. I've seen God's yes in many aspects of my life, and I've seen the not yets, and I've seen the absolute no's from God, where I pray for a certain thing and He says, no, this is not going to happen. This is not going to happen now. There's certain things that you have to change. And don't worry, it'll change when you're ready for it. And then I'm content in that particular space, and then we move on from there. Then, of course, it's going to be a family legacy, right? How do you rear your children? How do you mentor others that if you don't have any biological children, how you deal with your parents? You honor them. Even if they're toxic, you could still honor them by just at least giving them credit for allowing for you to be on this particular planet, that you weren't aborted, or that something did not happen in your mother's womb. You're here. Your life is a blessing. It should not be minimized no matter how you came into this world, even if it's through the most unseeming circumstances. You are still here. So therefore they should be honored at least at that particular moment in time. And if they've done more, then that should be even more of a reason why you should pray for them and bless them while they have time here as well. Okay. Same thing with our children. We say honor our mother, our father, but also you shouldn't provoke your children to wrath. So you don't need to be beating them to death and abusing them and all this other stuff like that, because that's what happened with you in your life, right? You don't need to do that. And then the opposite is also true. If you take it to the other extreme and then you never ever chastise them, you never correct them, and I'm talking about the fathers and the mothers, aunties, uncles, whatever it may be, then you are still leaving a legacy, and you're going to have brats as children, falling out in grocery stores, yelling at you. You're actually having a long-term argument with somebody that's 20 years, 25 years younger than you, and they're standing 10 toes down, and you are trying to debate with them. Amen, lights. Amen. Well, is this thing on? I can't hear nothing. Maybe I need to bring out the rubber ducky because I'm gonna throw this at somebody. Don't you? That is not a good legacy to leave, because that means that you are raising children that are going to have an entitlement type of attitude, and they're going to assume that they're owed everything. And now we have a situation right now in our society where people are looking to psychology and therapy on a very deep level because there's depression, because life is not going to be given to you in a bed of roses, and that there's going to you have to work hard, and you have to pay bills, and you have to invest, and you have to pour your life into certain areas so that you can get ahead. And whatever ahead looks like for you, you're going to have to take the time out in order to be able to do that. So you're hampering their development by giving them everything and then appeasing them. Or mama and daddy can't really agree on disciplining them. So you're trying to raise up a son or you're trying to raise up a daughter, and daddy comes in. You say, no, no, you're being too hard. No, no, no. When they turn 12 or 13 or 15 years old and they're looking down at you, and then they're cussing you out in the house, and you've been in church all of your life, then you're going to lose your mind. You better get them now while they're only knee high. You better think about that in advance, because it's going to come back to haunt you. Be engaged. Don't just be a man in the house or a woman in the house. Have something to say, impart wisdom into you. If your job is wearing you out and you know that you need to make a change, you don't need to wait until you're 55 in order to make a decision in order to do that. If you're 30, make the change. Shift. Do something different. You have no one to blame if you don't do that. And if you continue to do it, if you end up in the hospital because God told you to go one particular way and you do not, then whose fault is that? But, no, no. Whose fault is that? Because your children, your family, your spouse, whoever it may be, is watching to see how you are working yourself to the bone but not going anywhere. Or you're afraid to try. And because you failed the last time, now you can't move forward. And now it's just, well, okay. Sometimes you have to cut things off in order for it to grow. So you have to set a spiritual culture inside of your house. Your presence is important. Prayer is important. If you don't pray while you're at home and you don't put prayer and a relationship with God as a priority, then it's going to be foreign to your children for the next generation. And then you're going to wonder why they're also playing soccer and going to the mall while there's people inside of church at that moment in time. And they won't feel any different about it because you let them stay home Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. Legacy. The next piece is career and work legacy. Again, think about excellence, integrity. I'm doing a good job. But pause, everybody. This is also important. Raises are not the way that you're going to be able to build wealth. I'm trying to help you. The average raise in our current modern time, we all hear that wages or bills have outpaced wages, or the pace of inflation has outweighed and out has out inflation has outpaced wages. So the 1.2% raise, the 2.1% raise that you got year after year, if you gotten a raise at all, has been absorbed by inflation over the last 3 years, 3 to 4 years, and gas prices. So a lot of times, the only way that you're going to be able to give yourself a boost, you can work more hours, but then your health goes at a detriment. So it sounds like you're making more, but you're actually working less, and then there's going to be a cost in other areas of your life. So sometimes you have to just simply get something else. And this is, I'm gonna say this as politely as possible. Sometimes you have to fire your boss, either start your own business, and not everybody's built for that. I was talking to AJ, and he said, "I'm not built for entrepreneurship." Andre is built for entrepreneurship. That's what he wants to do. He likes to kill his food and eat it right then. But Jaden wants his stuff inside of the refrigerator. Jaden wants his stuff inside the refrigerator. He said he's built for a 9 to 5. That is his lane. No matter which path that you take, sometimes you have to apply, and that's your promotion. Sometimes you have to take a risk. If your income has stayed the same over the last 3 years and you're stressing, there's only so much you can save, y'all. If you're stressing over that, then what do you need to do? And I'm not just telling you something that I theoretically know. I'm talking about something that I have done for real, for real. So just think about that as you begin to go forward, right? Don't just chase money, build an impact. A lot of times people wonder, well, how do I get into management? How do I get into leadership and all of that? Well, most of the time when you get into management and leadership, for all my 9 to 5 folks like myself, right? I'm like a hybrid. I have the entrepreneurial side and I have a 9 to 5 side. You do, yes, let me help you. You do have to go to the um the charity events. It's good for you to go to the charity events. I'm telling you, as somebody whose social battery goes down to zero very, very fast, and I'm talking about me, Mark. You do need to go to those charity events, those 5K walks, and put your T-shirt on that's blue and orange and all that other stuff like that, and you walk around the office building. You never know if there is somebody that, like I said, this is a benefit for cancer. You never know if there's a manager or a certain key leader that's there that's directly impacted by that specific issue. And when they see you in that specific space, now you're opening up doors. Because oftentimes we get pulled forward by people who have access to doors that we cannot go through. They speak about or they bring up your name. This happened to me just recently. They speak your name in doors that you cannot go through. But once they speak your name, then all of a sudden, yeah, somebody told me about you and they saw you at the 5K run. Or I went to this other event with my wife. It's called Derby Day. And we see all these people in nice, funny suits and all this other stuff like that. And normally, both me and her will not go to stuff like that in our younger years. We'd be like, man, we ain't got time to be around all them people like that. But then we learn that a lot of times it's not only what you know, the degrees, but it's also who you know. That's right. You're building those relationships. I'm going to give you a company match if you donate to our cause. But then they find out about it, and then okay, this person is here. It is well-rounded. Barack Obama said this a little while ago. He says most of the time, those people that be in those boardrooms that make all that money, that are in leadership positions, they are not rocket scientists. They are not geniuses. They understand that how to speak well and articulate themselves, bring solutions to the table, and they also know how to build relationships with people, whether they are friend or foe. That's the key. If you want to, if here's another example, there's a different conversation that workers have as opposed to the supervisors and the managers have. They see things totally different. If you want to have that, unless you have a specialized skill, if you want to have that salary that's in that place about leadership and being able to go forward and whatnot, build a relationship with those individuals. Talk to them. Look at the issues and how they see the company, and then go into that specific space and then practice that. Have those speeches. Know how to talk when it's time for you to come off camera. Y'all know how y'all do. You'll be on camera and it'll be like closed just like this, and then all of a sudden, oh yes, Andre, by the way, could you give us some insight? Or if they go around the room and it says, is there any other questions or anybody else have any ideas? That's the time when you need to do what? You need to speak up. Even if you say something that's a little bit off, say it anyway. Let me put it in hood vernacular. Closed mouths don't get fed. Closed mouths don't get fed. Put yourself out there. See what happens. Surround yourself with the individuals that are where you want to be. What am I doing personally? Where I'm working at, I surround myself with people that are where I want to be. The managing directors, supervisors, and I'm not intimidated by any of them. And sometimes it takes years to not be intimidated by people, but that intimidation factor won't go away if you never start the process. You have to go. Go to the holiday parties, go to those special events, volunteer. And this is if you're in that space right now, because that gives you exposure. People see you in a different light. The person may have a toy obsession just like you do, and y'all talking and talking and talking, and that person may not have openings at the very beginning, but they may have down the line. I just want you to open up your mindset, leaving a legacy. And so then when you talk to your children, you can tell your children, hey, get your degree, go get your trade, learn something different, get your certificate. It'll take you 6 months to learn a different skill. To my brothers and my sisters that are not interested in going to college, going back to college, you don't have to do that, but it should take 6 months. Invest in yourself for that 6 months. But I'm 41, Pastor Martin, I'm 40. Before you turn 41 or 42, you'll have a different skill set. But if you never try, then you're going to not make any progress. You're not going to go anywhere. So instead of, being bitter and then being resentful and snapping at everybody and being mad at everybody because you're not making any progress or you can't contribute how you want to, change, do something different. And this is the other piece too. Don't waste anybody's time. This is very important as far as resources, and then I'm almost done. Don't waste people's time. When you do get an audience with those people that could help you get somewhere, don't waste their time. And this is where I'm at right now. There are there are certain phases, and anybody who's been around me for any length of time, I've been preaching this for like a long time. But there are certain conversations that I have with people that want to go somewhere, and I can tell if they are gleaning things from me or they're just hearing me talk. And I see this reflected by the choices they make after I have the conversation with them, right? So my words are not to be wasted because I can tell that other people who are of status, whether it's equal to mine or even beyond mine, they're not going to waste their words with people who are not going to change where they are. And you hear it the way that I have my conversations with people. So with people that want to go somewhere, my conversations with them have a tendency to be longer. But with the people that don't want to change, my conversations with them have a tendency to be much shorter or very, very surface or plutonic, right? And I used to think about the reason why certain people would talk to me that way when I was very, very young, because I would just ask them, hey, can you give me a hookup or can you do this X, Y, and Z? Or it's like some frivolous thing. And I didn't know any better at that moment in time, but the conversation was cordial, but it wasn't life changing. So I Now, see myself doing the same thing. I could be cordial with you, but if you want to have a life-changing conversation, let's talk. If you're willing to put a plan together to be great, let's talk, right? And I don't have to be a millionaire in order to be able to pass on good information to you. You don't have to be a celebrity. The celebrities are going through the ringer right now, so I don't think you need to have any advice from those people. You don't know what they had to do behind the scenes in order to get where they are, especially in the ungodly culture that we are in right now. If it's an ungodly culture, they had to do ungodly things in order to get to the top. But for the people of God, it's different. So my conversation is going to be few. I'm gonna let my actions speak louder than my words. And if you want to go to the next level, then you'll see how I roll and you'll see how I rock, and then you'll emulate that. And then you'll go beyond that. When you get to that place where you need to be, you need to pour into those that have the capacity and also the actions that correspond with that particular capacity. They have to be willing, able, and also available. You don't need to be in the same place 10 years in a row. Talk about some, okay, well, I got great tenure on the job. No, we're not in that generation. You better have that 401k in order, that IRA. You better start investing because the economy can change in a snap. Just think about it. Just some things for you to think about. So even conversations for people that where they want to go are very different from people who are just trying to maintain what they have. Thriving conversations versus survival type of conversations. Just trying to make it to the end of this week conversation versus what we doing this weekend and where we going this weekend type of conversations. You feel me? You see where I'm coming from? Very, very important. And it takes time. This did not all happen when I turned 25 years old. However, I had a lot of good things in place when I was 25 years old. My wife helped me, Lady Martin helped me to propel towards those things at that very early age. I saw what type of family that she came from. I had in my mindset that what I was going to bring to the table had to be at least equal to or greater than where she actually came from. And I strive for that, right? That was my own personal goal, personally. And then likewise for her, as in regards to me. And what kind of family that I came from. It has to be either equal to or better. And I saw that reflected in how she take care of the family, the household, and the children and beyond, as well as bettering herself. There's a lot of things that you could do. And then finally, there is also another piece, okay? And that other piece is making sure that you have the proper character. There's one thing I like to watch all types of podcasts. And so one of the podcasts, excuse me, because I'm pinching my nose because my nose is tingling a little bit. But one of the podcasts I was watching okay, so I'll give y'all some insight. I watch two types of podcasts, right? Or three types. I watch biblical podcasts, theology. I like to look at sports and career type things. But then there's another part of my life that I can't erase, and that is the hood side. Because I came from the streets too. Now it may not look that way now, but back in the day, I looked at that and I was a part of that particular world. I was more so on the athlete side of the house, which is you had all the big homies, you had all the people from the streets, everybody, dope boys, whatnot. But Dre, you need to go ahead and you play football, so you need to focus on that. You don't need to be doing what we do. Oh, we know your mama and them, and they good people. You don't need to be around that particular type of element. So most of the time, I didn't get invited to those specific circles to kind of do the dirt that all of the other dope boys were doing. I was pushed away, or I was told, "You too innocent. You don't need to be into all of that. Your mama and your daddy, they really good people, and I see them in church all the time. You need to go ahead and go on somewhere." With some cuss words behind that. So one of the things I heard on the podcast today, and a bunch of fellas around our age, they were OGs to consider OGs. So I'm considered OG now, right? So one of the things that they were saying that there's a difference even though there's two different worlds, two different environments, there's one thing that rings true in each environment, and that is your character. Character in the street world, you consider it as a real, you can fill out the blank. Inside of the spiritual world, which is the world I'm in, because I used to be in the other world, you're a good person. What's parallel in both environments is loyalty, love, and respect. Even if you were doing wrong, You can do wrong in either environment. But having that character attributes, keeping your word, doing what you say that you're going to do, stop all of that cotton picking, complaining, making changes, leading instead of following. Stop just waiting to be asked to do everything and then take some initiative. Those are character things. The behavior is the behavior. The behavior can change. I got saved, and so that's the reason why your boy's not crashing out as much as he could. So I'm saved now, but the characteristics are the same in both environments. Love, loyalty, respect. Love, loyalty, and respect. I was once real, fill in the blank, but now I'm saved and I'm a man of God. I don't have to go back to that environment and have those behaviors in order to thrive in the new environment. But what I can bring from the new environment that was still the same in the old environment is love, loyalty, and respect. There are certain things that sometimes also can be a great legacy that you can live and lead. My grandfather on my mother's side had a great work ethic. Great work ethic. He used to work in the woods back at that time, and he passed away several years ago. Passed away when I started ministry several years ago. He was like 94, and he grew up at a time to where they pulled you out of classroom to go work. So he was pulled out of the classroom, I believe, in it's either third grade or the sixth grade. He couldn't go further in school because they needed him to work pulling pulpwood and cutting down trees just as a young man. And he did that for years upon years. And he was extremely strong, not the biggest of men, but he had that grown man strength, right? And I always admired that work ethic for all those years that he put in. And then my father had that same type of work ethic. That is something that I took. That was their legacy. And I saw value in that. And I saw the wisdom behind if you don't work, then you don't deserve to eat. So if you work, that you can eat. But if you work smarter, then you can eat different types of things. I can't just eat, I can eat different types of things. So it's not only having a work ethic that I learned from my grandfather, but also working smarter as I began to not only see things that my father did, but even beyond him, the different types of people or the circles that I looked at when I wanted to get ahead in life, whether that's on the spiritual side, whether it's on the career side, even put it this way, I don't look at somebody with no muscles as a role model for health. I look at somebody that has muscles and weights and all this other stuff for my age range. And I use that as an actual third grade. Okay. I use that as a blueprint to motivate myself to stay healthy even right now. Right? You always want to look up to someone that is where you want to be. And if you're not looking at all, then you need to check yourself. Right? All right. Okay, so I'm done. That's all I got for today. Hopefully that I was able to share some stuff with you. Hopefully I gave you some great insight. And then I'll leave you with this one final thought. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Be careful of legacy killers. This is the last piece that I want to tell you. Kind of like those dead branches that were on the tree that I was telling you about earlier. Those could be legacy killers. They seem like they're everywhere, but you won't grow until you cut them off. So I'll leave you with this. Watch out for lack of intentionality. If somebody won't keep their word, you better stay far away from them. I hear people talk about, like, some characters talk about some man. I won't even talk to a man that's not taking care of their kids or won't take care of their kids. I don't care how they came into the world, whether in wedlock or out of wedlock. I won't even do business with that because that's supposed to be the most precious thing in your life. And if you're kind of neglecting that, then what else will you neglect? That's just my personal belief. Okay. You have to be intentional. Our women, you need to be intentional as far as how you choose a mate, how you deal with things, how you roll, how you talk to somebody about somebody in front of their face and also behind their back. I listen. If they don't have intentions or good intentions, don't even be around them or else you're wasting your time. Absence in family. Okay. If this person is never around to celebrate family members, and I learned this from my wife, then they are putting job, work, family. I mean, they're putting their job and what they're doing over what is most important because the job will change, but your family will not. So make sure that you are present not only physically, but also emotionally. Don't just be the angry man around the house and never have good things to say with your kids, right? If your kids are coming up to you, that's a blessing. That means that you're approachable. Engage with them. If you did not have a father or even nowadays a mother in your life, ask, do the research, be intentional, be present. Next thing is also work success, but home failure. This is very important for my entrepreneurs, my ambitious people, even my children, if you were to see this one day. If you're working 24/7, you're getting the bag. But if you do that too much, you'll end up in a body bag. You'll be toe tag. You'll be in a morgue somewhere because your body was not meant to work consistently without a Sabbath. And a Sabbath is just basically having the proper rest. If you're not resting and you're always exhausted, it's only a matter of time before you check out. So please keep that in mind. Two more, unhealed trauma and pride. Now, this is very important. And this is my shout out to my men with this one. If you allow for that stubbornness, and I'm talking about silent stubbornness, you don't have to have muscles and a lot of money to be stubborn. You could be stubborn and broke. You could be stubborn with a minimum wage job. Don't let stubbornness and pride keep you from being a better contributor to your family and to your children, whether it's monetary or tangible, or even if it is untangible. Don't let pride or the refusal to change get in the way, or else you'll never go anywhere. Because there's going to be something that happens that's going to break that particular pride, and it should be voluntary as opposed to being by force. Unhealed trauma is also another thing that could kill your legacy as well. Don't let things that crippled you or hurt you when you were young carry over and thwart your destiny into the future. Sometimes you have to fight against those old demons, right? All of us have to do it to a certain level or another. We saw mean people in our legacy. That's the way we communicate now. People didn't communicate well, so I don't need to communicate. People checked out back then when things got hard. You check out now. No, do the opposite of that. Address those specific things. Heal in those specific areas, right? It's time for you to fly. And then finally, no long-term vision. A lot of times this would just be into the men's column, but it could be for the man and the woman as well. Whether you're married, single, whatever, have a vision for the future. Be intentional as far as what do I have? What is my plan? What do you plan to do in the next 3 to 5 years? I plan to just work. Okay, what else? I plan to take care of my kids. Okay, what else? What else is there? That's just what you are doing. But what are you doing to move ahead or to move into whatever God has called you to be, right? If you're around those legacy killers, then you won't have a legacy to leave for anyone, all right? Be blessed, everybody. I love you. There's nothing that you can do about it. Make sure that you like and subscribe. Do what you need to do. Ask questions. Emulate those proper characteristics. Don't get stuck in your ways. I can't tell you this enough. The ways that you want to be stuck in is good character. Keep on telling the truth. Keep on keeping your word. Those are things that you can be unbending on. But if you want to do something different career wise, you don't want to just be like, oh man, I died in this chair at this particular job. I had this accident because they'll cut you off and replace you just like that. You have no one else to blame but yourself. Make the change. Do something different. But it's going to cost money. It's going to cost money if you stay in the same rut. Because guess what? The prices ain't getting cheaper. So what do you need to do? If you stay the same, unless you're where you want to be, if you stay the same, inflation is going to catch up with you, and all that progress that you made, all of those years, the prices will erase all the gains that you made, and you still end up in the same place. Think about that going forward. All right. God bless you. God keep you. This is my prayer. Take care. Live a legacy. Leave one too.